Spider-Man, Spider-Man, time to talk about Spider-Man. So Spider-Man Homecoming just came out, and I saw the first screening on Thursday night, so I'm going to tell you what I thought of the movie. The last Spider-Man film to release was The Amazing Spider-Man 2 back in 2014, and I actually reviewed that. I didn't really like where Sony was going with their rebooted Spider-Man series, and I was hoping that eventually Marvel would do something with him. And thankfully, Sony has worked with Marvel Studios on this film, and has produced something that is probably the best Spider-Man film since the original Sam Raimi one, and I think this one even surpasses it. We already saw this actor Tom Holland play Spider-Man in Captain America Civil War, but this time we're seeing him in a standalone movie and seeing if he actually can carry an entire movie. And thankfully he can, and he's probably the best Peter Parker that has been on screen. And the high school that he goes to actually feels like a high school, and the kids actually look like high school kids. There isn't a flashback to the origin of Spider-Man and how he was bitten by the radioactive spider, because we already know that. It's referenced very slightly, but most of this movie is Spider-Man being Spider-Man and Peter Parker. And we see Peter trying to balance out those two lives. I thought we would see Tony Stark a lot more in this movie, since we see in the advertisements Iron Man flying with Spider-Man, but I guess that was just for the advertisements because he's not really in it that much. He still plays a vital role as Peter's mentor, but he's there when he needs to be. This isn't like a buddy hero film where we have Spider-Man and Iron Man, it's mostly Spider-Man throughout the whole thing. And this version of Spider-Man is probably the best version since the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon. He throws around a lot of quips, and sometimes he's a little awkward, and sometimes he can be pretty irresponsible since he is a kid. Then there's the villain of the Vulture, played by Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton is a great actor, and recently he's had a lot of great roles in a lot of movies. And the motivation for this villain, to make you sort of sympathetic for this villain, I thought was a great take on it, and the way they get the technology actually integrates itself into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's one of the best villains that Marvel has had, and since Marvel has had a problem with villains, I'm glad that the Spider-Man villain is one that they got right. Because the Spider-Man villains, in my opinion, are some of the best out of the Marvel franchise. While DC has its big list of Batman villains, Marvel has its list of Spider-Man villains. So I'd like to see in future movies Dr. Octopus, Green Goblin, Venom if they can, if Sony will let them. But starting off, the Vulture works for this movie. I do have a couple of nitpicky things about this movie, even though I do love it a lot. First of all, the love interest of Liz is a little weak, but I understand why, though you'll have to see the movie to understand. There's also a point in the movie where Spider-Man is up high, and he's a little afraid, and I thought that was kinda out of character for Spider-Man, because Spider-Man is up in high places all the time, so why would he be afraid now? There were a couple of things I thought they were going to do in the beginning where it was like, oh no, they're going to do this cliche thing again. But thankfully, they surprised me and went in a completely different direction. I like Peter's friends in school, and I like Michelle the best, she's hilarious. I like Aunt May, I guess, though there's that recurring joke of, oh, she's hot. So that's another nitpicky thing, I guess, so that makes 3 things. But other than that, I really like this Spider-Man movie. I like the action, I like the characters, I like the story. Everything was great. And there are a ton of Easter eggs for Spider-Man fans, so see if you can catch some of them. Some of them are obvious, some of them are not so obvious, and I'll have to rewatch it to see which ones I missed. And I'm sure there's a lot that just flew over my head. So if you have seen Spider-Man Homecoming, tell me down in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Well, by now we're getting a bit used to winter. We're like soldiers in the middle of a campaign, growing hardened to discomfort and better able to take it.